Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Welcome, everybody. Let's start off by imagining a scenario. A 3-year-old hands you a book made of construction paper and crayons, looks you in the eye, and announces, "I'm a publisher." Fast forward 4 decades, and the same person has become one of the most respected voices in the publishing industry, with a track record of helping hundreds of authors turn their expertise into strategic business assets. Today's guest is very unique because she's actually lived on both sides of the equation. She's been behind the mahogany doors of Simon & Schuster and has ghostwritten national bestsellers. And now she runs the Writer's Alley, a consultancy that doesn't just help you publish a book, but make sure that you publish it the right way. So, welcome to our podcast today, where we're going to be chatting with the one and only Machate, and she's about to challenge everything you think you know about writing and publishing. We're looking forward to an amazing conversation here. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ally. Welcome to our show.
Thanks so much for having me, Danielle. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Of course. And, this is going to be a very unique and fun episode because, Ally, you're just telling me, you work with people for so many years to publish their books, but just like myself, you've never published your own. So I think it's going to be really cool to share what you've learned throughout all these many years and even talk about maybe some of your ideas for a future book too. So it's going to be a great chat for everybody.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'd love to get started a little bit by if you could tell us a little bit about your journey. I gave hints about it in the introduction here. But yeah, you went from being a little girl handing out homemade books to here you are now with your own company. So can you tell us a little bit what that journey was like? Any pivotal moments that stand out above others that continued your passion for writing?
Yeah, it really is a lifelong obsession. I've always loved to read and I've always loved to write. My mother loves to tell that story about the construction paper. I was 3 when I learned to read, so I could not wait and I wanted to read the books myself. Did all the usual academic stuff. I was editor of the school paper and on the literary magazine, editorial board and yearbook and all that. When I was in college, I started freelancing for the first time, which was really amazing. The internet had been around for a little while, but the digital explosion of content was really just beginning. And so I worked for a few different online companies doing content, and I was really fortunate to get an internship with a local regional publisher. And I would say that was a real pivotal moment for me because, first of all, it was my first real job at a publisher, which was exciting. But also because it was such a small regional publisher, I was able to get my fingers into a lot of different things. As an intern, I was still able to read incoming manuscripts and give my opinion. I was able to participate in shaping marketing plans. I was able to work with the publisher on some of the administrative and behind the scenes type stuff that goes on to produce a book. So it was really cool to have that opportunity and that experience. And then, of course, as you mentioned, I got that job at Simon & Schuster right out of school, and working for a big 5 publisher in New York was my absolute dream. And to have that come true was really life-changing, and not just emotionally, but as it turns out, practically, because it taught me so much about the business. And I learned that I love publishing, I love books, I love writers. But when I started freelancing again, I learned that I really loved working with the authors a little bit more directly. Publishing, you work in publishing, you probably see this too. It's an incredible industry. There are a lot of passionate people and there are lots of opportunities for authors, but it's also true that there are lots of good books that never get a publishing deal for lots of different reasons. And I think that was really frustrating to me to see so many projects that I knew were good projects, that I could see how they could be marketed, I could see how they could be sold, but it just wasn't a big enough scale for a large publisher. And that was one of the things that sent me off into creating my own company so that I could help elevate more voices and help more people who had lots of great information to share, but maybe, didn't have a massive mailing list in the 6 and 7 digits, or didn't have their own TV show, or weren't best friends with Oprah,
Understood. So that's a beautiful journey there that you were able to discover not only, that you love to write, but the exact way that you like to be involved with books, of getting connected with the authors themselves and seeing the best way that they could create their book for maximum impact. That's really great that you're able to do that. But what were some factors over others that you would say makes a great book? I mean, I'm sure that's a pretty typical question, but it sounds like you can talk to an author and know what the vision is, but then you know exactly what needs to be done to that to make it profitable. How exactly do you see that?
So, a lot of it comes down to strategy and strategic thinking, which ironically enough is missing for a lot of authors, even authors who are really great about strategy in their businesses. When it comes to writing the book, they don't apply the same tools and tactics that they've learned in how to find their ideal clients and how to adjust their positioning or their messaging. A lot of the things that go into marketing and selling any kind of service or product apply to a book as well, but a lot of people don't realize that. So they're super smart, they have lots of great stuff to share, and then they write this book that isn't quite right. Maybe it's not quite speaking to the right people, or it isn't set up in such a way that it motivates the reader to take a next step. They just kind of read the book and say, oh yeah, that was cool. Okay, I'll give it a nice review, and then they're done, which is okay. But most people, if they have a business and they write a book, they want that book to do something more for them in their business than just get some nice reviews and maybe sell a few copies.
Right, exactly. So you're really figuring out like the actionable steps that come after somebody finishes reading a book. Go into a website, go check out their own podcast, check out whatever it might be. I get that. You need to make sure that you're guiding them in a funnel to where you need the readers to be. So I get that.
Yeah, it is a kind of a funnel, actually.
Yeah. And when you're creating that book, that outline and all the content has to kind of be a part of it. So I definitely know what you mean by the strategy behind it all. As much as we can say that writing is a passionate type of work, it also involves a strategy too. It can't be purely passion. So yeah. I mean, kind of branching off of that and going more into the writer's alley approach, you mentioned writers avoid the wrong book. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? What does the wrong book look like? How do you recognize when people are heading down that wrong path? And, honestly, how do you even approach that conversation with them to tell somebody you're not writing the right book? I'm very curious about this, all of us, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it is in some sense the quintessential question is when any, especially an expert, but even when you're writing fiction or memoir, it's true too, is the book that I'm writing the right book? And when I say that, what I mean is to that point of, do you just want to sell copies of your book, or do you want your book to do something for you? So in the case of most business owners, when they write that book, it's not just to say that they're an author. It's because they hope that that book is going to do something like open doors for speaking opportunities, attract new clients, position them as a thought leader, maybe just give them more visibility in their space so more people recognize and know who they are. Maybe it's something that they're going to leverage and send to event organizers or hosts if they want to do a keynote talk, or they're going to send it to people in HR if they want to try to do corporate retreats, right? There's lots of different things that you can do with a book. So we try to help people understand that that's where they need to start. A lot of authors start with the huge backlog of content they already have from social media or from presentations or things like that. And they just think, well, I have all this stuff. Let me just use it somehow. Let me just put it together and put it into a book. Or somebody told them, well, you just really need to write a book. And they just dump everything they've ever learned and everything that they know and think is important. And they try to put it all into one book. And these kinds of things can end up in what we would say maybe is a good book. It can be well written and it can contain lots of really good information. But without that strategy piece, without thinking about who exactly the book is for and what exactly you want the book to do for you, you end up with a book that's good, but perhaps not marketable. And in that sense, it's the wrong book. It can be out there, people can like it, it can be objectively good, but it still may not get you the results that you actually want.
Understood. Yes, so that's why you need to make sure you're focusing on those results and really honing in on that. So I see that's why I can see how you've made a lot of progress following this approach. I'm sure that you've had a lot of success stories, that after they've been on the shelves, people actually reaching the audiences they've been looking for. So that's great that you have that. You were a nonfiction author and you want to focus on those accents, so those strategic assets. Do you have an example of a recent client who you did guide them that way and it came out to be a success?
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of success stories, of course, but one that springs to mind is a client we've actually done several books with. But a few years ago, when we first met her for her first book, she had a very successful business. She was serving coaches with a software solution and also coaching coaches on how to run their business. And so it wasn't that she, wasn't already doing very well, but she wanted to level up. She really wanted to start scaling and growing and start getting into partnerships and things like that. So she wrote this book, and we targeted the book very specifically at new coaching businesses because she was trying to get people really early in their career so that she could help them see why her processes and her way of building a business would save them a lot of heartache and aggravation and just get them more profit more quickly compared to just stumbling around in the dark and trying to do it themselves. And the book was absolutely transformative for her business. So she tried to write this book for 11 years before we met. And she almost cried with relief when we finally helped her figure out exactly what the book needed to be and helped her outline it. And then she went off and wrote it. We came back and we then edited it, produced it. She used the book as part of a launch for an online program that she had created, which again was sort of new for her business. And because she had this book and because it was so good and it was so perfectly tied into, she knew exactly who the book was for. She knew exactly what kind of people were going to be good for her course, which was the end result, right? Thinking strategically, the book was meant to bring people to buy the course. She was able to get, I think it was something like 10,000 new people onto her mailing list by giving the book away. And she gave the book away strategically through partners that she hand selected. So she had over 150 new partners participating in the launch, promoted the book. She ended up getting 10,000 something new people onto her list. And her launch was incredibly successful. It was in upper six figures. She had done all of these things before, but she had never done any of these things at that scale. And she told us that she was 100% sure that it was all thanks to the book that she was able to make all that stuff happen.
Well, that's a beautiful story. And again, it's because of that book, it was a launching pad. It really helped her bring her to where she needs to be. So you might have a great idea for a book and you want to write it, but with that right support, what you're able to give her, she's able to amplify so much more. So
yeah, absolutely. And I can share with you, I'll also share with you a brief story of the opposite, where you have someone who really wrote the wrong book. You asked how I have these conversations with people.
Please, yes.
I will say up front, they are challenging conversations. It's heartbreaking to have to tell somebody who has spent, a lot of time and energy and maybe even money in creating this book that they've done all of this work and now they have something that isn't actually going to do what they wanted it to do. It's not an easy message. But I have had those conversations. And one such conversation I had many years ago was a woman who had just started her coaching business. So she was a woman who had overcome a lifetime of abuse. She had been abused as a child. She went through an abusive marriage, and she had reinvented herself, found her self-esteem, was now living this great life, and she wanted to coach other women in the same situation. So she specifically wanted to work with women who had low self-esteem as a result of having been abused, which is great, right? Like really clear avatar. She knew exactly who that was. And somebody told her, well, if you're starting a business, you should write a book. The book will help you grow the business. So she went ahead and wrote a book. But here's what happened. Because she didn't have any clients yet, her business was too new. Nobody featured in the book was someone she'd actually worked with. She didn't have any case studies. She didn't have any stories. She basically just went to her personal network and asked if anyone wanted to share their stories. And so she had this collection of essays of stories from women who had all overcome low self-esteem. But they weren't all women who had been abused, so they didn't particularly represent her target audience. They were just a variety of things that had happened and stories of women who were dealing with low self-esteem. None of the women were her clients. None of the women had worked with a coach, so the book didn't even present coaching as a solution. And so ultimately, what she had was a good book. I mean, they were nice stories, it was inspiring and well written, but nothing about that book was going to help her grow her business. It wasn't going to attract clients. It didn't display her own ideas or processes or expertise in any way. There was literally nothing about it that invited people to take a next step in working with her. And that was very much the wrong book. And it was a very, very hard conversation to have.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a shame because I think I mentioned this before too. You could have a lot of passion about your book, but yeah, if you're not giving the audience something to do after the fact, they'll say that was a great book and move along. And that's unfortunate that happened to that particular person. So it just really hones in on the need for somebody like yourself and like your company that can really make sure you're doing it the right way. You don't want to spend all this time on something that's going to, unfortunately, just kind of sit there and give a bit of inspiration to some people, but then never really come back to you as the writer itself. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think in a weird way that trap is actually born out of people's passion, because they're so focused on the message they want to share or the story they want to share, whatever it is that is lit the fire under their butt to make them write the book in the first place. And that's okay. I mean, almost always when you start writing a book, it comes from something internal. There's some reason why you're writing that book that relates to you, and that's fine. But somewhere along the way, you have to stop thinking of the book as something you want to say and start remembering about the people who want to read the book. It's
Mm.
not so much about what you want to say, it's about what they want to read, right? It's what solutions are they looking for? What problems are they facing? What kind of expert do they see you as? And what kind of information do they want from you? If you forget about those things and are solely focused on what you want to say and use your book as a soapbox, even if it turns out to be a beautiful book, it's not going to connect with people and get business results.
Exactly. And connecting with people is a whole other aspect in itself. You need to make sure the book is connecting with the readers enough that they want to implement what you're giving them and really feel connection to it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a good segue into the writing process itself. How do you recommend that authors connect with others? What kind of strategies do you give your clients to make sure that they're following these, proper guidelines?
Yeah. Well, we work with clients at different stages, so we try to meet them where they are. Sometimes they're coming to us with a completed draft. We focus really heavily on the developmental stage with all of our clients. We're not one of those companies that just takes your draft and puts a cover on it and publishes it, right? Like we really want to make sure that the book is actually going to have some chance of success. So if they come in with the draft already completed, what that looks like is asking those questions. What is it that they're trying to do with the book? How does it fit into their business goals? So on and so forth. And making sure that what's in the draft aligns with what they actually said. And if we don't see that alignment, then that developmental process includes a lot of feedback about how to take what they've written and shift the angle, maybe change out some stories, maybe even change the title or subtitle to better make clear who the book is for. So there can be a lot of stuff that can be done once the draft is completed, provided it's not too far off the mark. Certainly, there are some cases we wouldn't take that person on as a client, but I have seen cases where people come to me and say they want to do something with their book, and then the draft that they have, I already know it's just not salvageable. It's just not going to do what they want it to do. In that case, I give them the best advice I can and tell them to come back when they have another draft. Sometimes, though, if we get to people a little bit earlier, and this is one of the reasons I'm on this show, and I'm out, trying to educate people and trying to get people a little earlier in the process. So I have a really simple 3-step process that people can use to get started, and it just helps frame everything about the book. So instead of starting with, like I said, how much content do I have sitting on my hard drive, or what is it that I want to say, I suggest that people start with that strategy. Get clear about your goals first. It's a given that anybody who publishes a book wants to sell books, right? Like we just know that. So that's not a goal. Besides just selling the book itself, what is it you want that book to do for you out in the world? Do you want it to position you as a thought leader? Do you want it to bring you clients? Do you want to use it to build your mailing list? Whatever those things are, make sure you understand very clearly what it is you want to accomplish for your business and what you want that book to do. Once you know that, then the next step is to get really clear about the ideal reader and the target audience. So who are the people that you're going to need to get in touch with to make that thing happen, whatever that thing is? What kinds of people? One of the worst mistakes that I see all kinds of authors make is thinking that their book is for everybody, right? No book is for everybody. And even if it's true that a book can be appealing to lots of different people, from a marketing perspective, that's just the kiss of death. Because if you're trying to talk to everybody, then you're actually connecting with nobody. So
I like
getting
that quote a lot.
yeah,
I've said
yeah.
it myself as well. Sorry, continue. Just wanted to pop in
Good.
there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, you got to be really clear about who the book actually is for. Once you know what you want the book to do and who the book needs to be for in order to achieve that goal, then the last step is really thinking about what that ideal reader, who presumably is also your prospective client, what do they need to understand, believe, or do to prepare for the next step? The book should really prime them for whatever that is. So if the next step is to get on their mailing list and just learn more about them, the book should get them ready to want to learn more from this person. If the next step is to work with them in some way, the book should be gearing them to get ready to work in their program or take their course, or teach them some foundational ideas or concepts that then the course or working with them is going to give them the practical skills to actually enact. So it can look a little different for everybody, but it's really those three things that gets you situated in terms of writing the right book versus the wrong one.
Of course, and kind of going back to that whole phrase there, the right book versus the wrong book. I can see how that's the overarching theme of what you do here, and it really does drive impact because you need to make sure that you're writing that right book. So, another question for you, what else might be on the radar? You're helping so many other people create their books. You mentioned to me that you're hoping to create your own one day. What would this book be about?
Actually, what we're talking about right now is sort of my theme for the year, and I am writing a book on the same subject. So I'm writing a book specifically designed to help experts who have written a nonfiction book related to their business understand that the value of their book is not the cover price. The game is really not about trying to sell books one at a time. It's about understanding how that book can be leveraged as a really powerful tool in your business to bring you different kinds of opportunities and open different kinds of doors. I really just want to help people understand how to squeeze every last drop of juice out of this piece of collateral, this asset that they've already invested so much into. I mean, it just breaks my heart when I meet people who actually have a great book and it's just gathering virtual dust in their Zoom background. Like they literally just don't know what to do with it. So I'm writing a book on that subject and hoping to help more people understand how to do that.
I like that a lot. And it's not only a useful book, but one that you've lived and experienced for all of your life. So you know exactly what people need to do. So honestly, you probably can write it in like a second, knowing that you say it all the time, every day. Yeah, maybe you should set aside a time, knock it out. That's why I always tell myself too, how about this weekend? But then of course, I love my clients. I want to make sure their work gets out first. So things kind of get moved around a bit, but yeah, definitely make it happen for yourself. Sometimes I think a lot of people can benefit from that.
Yeah, I'm about a third of the way through it. I'm moving slowly because I want to make sure that I'm meeting new people. I'm looking for some fresh stories. I'm trying not to tell all the same stories I've told 100 times before, but yeah, I'm really having fun with it.
That's amazing. I like that. So yeah, if people do want to get in contact with you and learn a little bit more about what you do, I'm assuming the best way would be to go to the website for your company. And what's the link that we can best find you at?
It's thewritersally.com, and you'll find, we have a number of free resources and gifts that people can download that I hope they'll find helpful. We have a blog with a lot of really informative articles. And of course, if you're actually ready to talk to me about your project, if you are thinking of writing a book, or if you've already written it and you need support to get it published and produced, there is a form to fill out for a free book strategy call.
I like that. And it's perfect that you have that free strategy call too. So if you're listening today, everybody, and you want to get in touch, you have a few questions, a great way to learn a little bit more about it is that strategy call. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you have any other bits of advice for the audience today, anything that we could take with us as we conclude and hold with us the rest of our day, maybe even a bit of homework for us to implement. What do you think?
Well, I would say, I know that a lot of people listening are probably thinking about writing a book, or maybe dreaming about it, or maybe you've heard lots of other people tell you that you should write a book. And I want to encourage you to take that seriously, but at the same time, again, it's always about strategy. Don't write a book just because everyone's telling you that you should. Don't write a book just because you think it's a box that you have to check off on your entrepreneurial achievement list. A book really does well for you when it is the right tool for the right job. And that comes back to that process that we keep talking about, is really getting clear about what it is you want that book to do for you. Because sometimes a book isn't the best tool for the job, and it is something that takes a lot more time and energy and resources than most people understand. And so you don't want to go down that rabbit hole if it's not actually going to be the best thing for you.
Of course, I got it. So really know what you're looking for. Think about what's best for you and your business and your book itself, and give yourself an analysis in that regard before moving forward. Or is that basically what you're getting at? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a lot to unpack here, a lot that we can implement in our own writing. Allie, you definitely have the best insights out there. And so everybody, head to Writer's Alley. There's so much content you can unpack there. When people do head to that website, I'm assuming they can find a little bit more about you and, that call as well. And I'm also assuming some resources for them too, perhaps like some articles, helpful tips too.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a blog with articles. We have a free gift. We call it the Are You Ready to Publish checklist, right on the homepage, where people can opt in and get that. It's a little checklist that just sort of asks 9 questions that every successful author should be asking themselves before publishing a book. And then if they actually do sign up and opt in and get on the list, once a month I do an open office hour kind of ask me anything session. I don't promote it outside the list, but anybody on the list, you don't have to be a client yet, is welcome to attend. So that's also a great way to ask a few questions and get some help.
Perfect. All right. Well, now we know a little bit more, and we're looking forward to diving in and checking it out. Allie, this has been incredible. I really appreciate this masterclass you've given us in a little half hour here. Lots of tips and tricks, things that we can implement in our own writing. So everyone, if you're listening today and you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start creating a book that can actually serve your business goals, you can head over to Allie so you know that you're writing the right book and not the wrong book. Allie, thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a pleasure.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to all of our listeners, if there's any takeaways that you can, package in along with all these other tips we've given, I would have to say, books aren't just about credentials. It's a tool. You have to make sure that it's designed for the right job you want it to do. Allie has shown us there's many different ways to make that happen. You need the right team, the right mindset, so many other things too. So the best way to make sure you're doing it right is to head to the Writer's Alley and learn a little bit more about it. So until next time, everybody, keep writing, keep learning, and remember, you're not just writing a book, you're building your legacy. This is Authors on Mission, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.